By now, even if you didn't play Mr. Pandaria back in the day, you would have heard the hype around gold challenge modes. These are something I absolutely loved in Mr. Pandaria originally and completed them on several characters just to get the amazing transmog sets. But I'll be completely honest with you straight away, there was another reason why I completed them on multiple characters, and we'll definitely get to that in the rewards section. Now, this is definitely something I'm going to be doing a lot in Classic because I will genuinely want to get the rewards on every character that I've got. But having been doing them all again recently in preparation for Classic, I want to answer some questions that you might have. Firstly, we're going to be going through the basics. What are challenge modes? Then we're going to look at what the rewards are that come from them, what gear you should aim for before stepping into them, some useful items that make them easier, and finally, are they actually hard? Firstly, I want to dispel a myth that you have to have a meta comp to be able to complete them. No matter what class and spec you play, you can get through these just fine. It comes down to planning and executing based on the group that you have. It would be very difficult to look at what someone else has done and replicate exactly what they do without you having exactly the same group composition. It's a really important note to bear in mind because if you try and copy exactly what another group's doing, but you've got even one class slightly different to them, you could be missing a CC, something that can group the mobs up and interrupt a stun, a big raid cooldown. You could be missing something key just from swapping that one person, which would then make you approach some of these pools slightly different. So the most important thing is that you plan and execute around your group composition. Right, okay, firstly then, what are gold challenge modes? Well, gold challenge modes are basically scaled up in difficulty but scaled down in item level versions of the existing heroic dungeons. All 9 of the Mr. Pandaria dungeons will all have a challenge mode variant, and everybody that steps foot in them instantly has all their gear scaled down to item level 463, which is basically the equivalent of what you actually get from these dungeons on heroic difficulty. When you get scaled down, your hit and expertise caps will remain the same, so if you're hit capped already, then you'll stay hit capped even after the squish. But what you got to remember is if you're hit capped for raid level bosses, for example, and then you're doing challenge modes, they're not as high as that, so you probably would reforge. If you want to do these and push for really good times, you'd be reforging before you do challenge modes anyway. And you'd most likely have an individual gold challenge mode set, which we'll get onto shortly. When you step foot in a dungeon, you'll be behind a wall of smoke, and when your group's ready, you click on a little pylon in the middle and say that you're ready to go. You'll get a countdown so people can prep up army and stuff like that, and then it's zoom in time. This particular dungeon, which is Temple of the Jade Serpent, has 15 minutes to get gold. Once you exceed that time, it will then tick down until it then shows you how much time you got left if you want to get silver. So now you can see it's another 10 minutes. So this particular dungeon to complete on silver would be 25 minutes in total. 15 minutes for gold, and quite honestly, bronze is such a generous time limit that as long as you get through the dungeon, you're going to be fine. Now, you'll notice as well that you've got the actual bosses that you need to kill and then a set amount of enemies. Now, this is incredibly important because you only want to kill the amount of enemies required and not be finishing up the last boss without enough, but also not finishing up the last boss having killed 5, 6, maybe even 7 enemies more than you needed to, because every minute counts. If you kill 1 extra pack, that could be the difference between gold and silver. Now, the one key thing that I want to touch on is you'll probably get in some bad habits when you're doing heroic dungeons because the dungeons don't feel like they've got any meaningful mechanics. My favourite example of this is Temple of the Jade Serpent, because it's pretty standard when you get to the first boss for you to tank the adds around where we're stood now, and we made this exact mistake. Obviously, our memories of gold challenge modes are a little bit hazy, and we just thought, wow, what is all of this damage? Now, when you're doing heroic mode, this is pretty much where the majority of groups will stand, but in gold challenge modes, because mechanics matter and you need to do things properly, this mechanic is actually you need to stand within 20 yards of the boss. But because mechanics matter in challenge modes and you have to execute things properly, you have to be close to the boss. So if you're outside a 20-yard range, you're all getting cleaved down. Now, there's many examples that I could give that are like this, where you'll be in the habit of just doing heroic dungeons where you kind of just ignore everything and nuke the boss. And then when you actually get to doing it on challenge modes, you're like, oh man, I actually need to do things properly. For example, even this boss, which is Hopsalus in Stormstout Brewery. We died a couple of times on this because we wasn't using the hammers that fall on the floor properly to stop the adds from exploding on top of us. So it's really fun because the dungeons are challenging. The mechanics do need to be handled properly, and quite literally one mistake can lead to you needing to reset and go again, which I suppose is something we should touch on next. Now, there's a macro that you can use that instantly resets it and sends you back to the start, which you can do these unlimited times a day. You can either use a macro that resets it and all it does is send you back to the start, or you can right click on your character pane and then reset challenge. This literally just puts you back in the preparation room. Now, an important note about this is if you do a bad pull and you already know that you're wasting time, you can actually reset it mid-combat as well. So we had many times where we was trying to do a big pull at the start of the instance, and maybe halfway through we was like, nah, this ain't working. We'd reset before anyone even died, and we'd be back at the start getting ready again. Now, some of these are easier than others. Gated to Setting Sun, for example, is a pretty easy one, whereas something like Scarlet Monastery is a particularly difficult one. I suppose which one's difficult for you and which one's easy for you may depend a little bit more on group comp, but in general, there's a few where the timers are a little bit tighter, and there's particularly difficult bosses or even trash pulls that can be really dangerous. I will go into a lot more detail, don't worry, but first, let's go through what the rewards are. So now you know you can get bronze, silver, and gold. If you get bronze in all 9 instances, you're simply going to get a title which is called the Undaunted. Honestly, for absolutely everybody, as long as you get through the challenge mode and don't disband before killing the last boss, you'll absolutely be able to get this title. And then if you complete all of these on silver, you're going to get an Ancestral Phoenix egg in the mailbox, at which point you'll go to Kai Featherfall and you'll be able to trade it in for 1 mount. Now, these mounts weren't account-wide, but with the new retail system, they may very well be this time, meaning if you do it on 4 characters, you might be able to get all 4 mounts. Obviously, take that with a pinch of salt. There's absolutely no way for me to prove or disprove that. It's just a gut feeling. And then finally, at gold, you get some of the best-looking transmogs in the game. In my opinion and in my experience, I still use the Hunter transmog and the Monk transmog to this day on retail. That's not it. For getting gold in your guild, you're also going to get access to a Thundering Serpent hatchling. If you're among the first 5 on the server, because all 5 should get this, not just the actual first person, because assuming you was doing it as a guild, you'd all run around and you'd get this achievement at exactly the same time. At which point you'll get a feat of strength called a Realm First, Challenge Conqueror Gold. No title, just an achievement. And then in my opinion, the most important reason to do it, and I genuinely do think these are the most important reasons to do it, and that's to get all the teleports. So on an 8-hour cooldown, you get a teleport to each of the instance entrances, providing that you've completed them on gold. Now, you don't need to complete all of them on gold to get these. If there's a specific one you want, like you want to be able to teleport over to Tirisfal Glade, so you go and do Scarlet Monastery, you could literally just go and do that one, complete it on gold, and get your teleport. Now, if you think 8 hours sounds a little bit extreme, don't get me wrong, it is, but it does reset. So if you teleport to, let's say, Scarlet Monastery, when you complete that challenge mode, it will reset. So now you'll be able to teleport somewhere else. But still, even on an 8-hour cooldown, how often are you going to need to use these, really, if you are just using them for general travel? Now, there is a leaderboard as well, and if you hold the fastest time on the server, you actually unlock a title relevant to the dungeon that you hold the fastest time in. If someone beats your time, you'll lose the title, but you will keep the feat of strength. I thought I'd just throw that in because being able to hold one of these titles pretty much all the way through the expansion and being one of only 5 people running around with it is obviously really cool. Okay, so that about covers the rewards. So what gear should you aim for? Now, there's lots of BIS lists floating around like this one, but most of them are all around the last patch, and they've got Siege of Orgrimmar gear and whatever else. Now, basically, there's a couple of trinkets that are going to be particularly strong, and of course, that's going to be Darkmoon card trinkets, specifically the Agility, Strength, and Intellect version, and then the Alchemist Stone. Now, the reason these are all super strong is because they give primary stat as a proc, and the Alchemy trinket being 458, you might be like, wait, surely I want a 463, I want to be as high as physically possible. Well, no, because there's literally no trinkets that give primary stat as a proc outside of Darkmoon card and the alchemy trinkets. Now, while I'm sure there'll be BIS lists that get made closer to the time and you'll be able to find them on Wowhead or wherever else, general rule of thumb is you want as many sockets as possible because your gems don't get scaled down. So the more sockets you've got, the better it is. So, for example, blacksmithing and alchemy for challenge modes would be massive because you're getting 2 extra sockets that are not going to get scaled down, and you're getting the alchemy trinket. Making sure you've got a belt buckle in your belt for an extra gem slot. Making sure you've got a meta head and a gem slot in your headpiece. And then really following your stat priority. If haste is your best stat, make sure you're getting lots of 463 gear. If you can't get one with a socket, just make sure it's got your best stats on. Quite honestly, outside of that, that's all you need to do gear-wise. Because like I said earlier, as long as you hit an expertise cap before you get scaled down, you'll still be hitting expertise caps afterwards as well. There are a few useful items you can get, and I spoke about them in a video about rare items recently, so be sure to go check that out. I'll put a link in the description. In Valley of the Four Winds, you can get a Battle Horn, which is absolutely amazing for tanks. because you can just run around a corner and use it, and it'll pull absolutely everything within 40 yards, making some of the more dangerous pulls really easy if you're a tank and you're using this. There's also Salian Battle Banner that comes from a rare near Galleon, where it acts as a bit of a vanish if you're a druid, because you can pop it, it puts you in stealth for a second, drops you out of combat, you can then prowl and res people. Rod of Amber Shaping can be particularly useful because it's a CC, but because it's instant cast, you can even use it as an interrupt, as well as the obvious one. If you're engineering, you don't need them. If you aren't engineering, you need them. And to be fair, if you are engineering, there's even an example where I can think of where you would still need them. That seemed really long-winded. I'm talking about invisibility potions. Now, because you only need to kill so much trash, there'll be trash packs that you just want to skip because you don't want to waste time killing them, so everybody having invis potions and making sure you use them at the right time to skip any trash that you don't need for the mob count is incredibly important. The reason I say engineers don't need it is because instead of getting rocket boost on your belt, you can actually get like an invisibility potion, basically. It's actually a lower cooldown than invisibility potions because it's only on 3 minutes and it lasts 15 seconds. So it's the same as like the lesser invisibility potions. The big invisibility potions give 18 seconds. And there definitely are a couple of pulls where 18 seconds can really help. And this one in particular in Scarlet Monastery is actually one of them because you are really going quite a distance. So unless you've got movement increase in effects, you're really going to struggle actually making it all the way in just the 15 seconds. So even if you are engineering, you'd probably still need a few of the 18-second potions knocking about purely for pulls like this. Well, it's not really a pull, is it? You know, for skips like this. And then finally, are they actually hard? Well, the good thing about these really is the fact that they don't get much easier even with gear. Yes, the higher gear you've got as you start getting gear from Throne of Thunder, Siege of Orgrimmar and places like that, you're going to get more gem sockets, which is going to make it feel easier, but not easier to the point where you can ignore all mechanics. I've seen many groups, and we've even done it ourselves, where you don't even use a healer. We done it with an elemental shaman healing, and what tank you're running as well makes a big difference. A brewmaster does so much self-healing, has the ability to do so much kiting, that actually you can get away without even running a healer if you've got a brewmaster tank. But really, we're talking about getting realm first times now. If you're going to run like a brewmaster and no healer, and then you're just going to have 4 DPS, you're really pushing for realm first times, and it leads to, if a mistake happens, it's very difficult to recover from it. Just to actually go in and get gold, you can take any 5 people, any tank, any healer, any mix of DPS, as long as they can all put out reasonable numbers and actually press their buttons. What you want to do is a dry run beforehand, so you can just run through and see which bosses might give you problems, which trash packs you might want to use cooldowns on, whereabouts you're going to use your invisibility potion, and then just go, right, okay, we know where we're going to do all this stuff, let's go and do it. Because again, you don't want to waste time killing trash you don't need to kill. If there's hard trash that you can skip with invis potions to kill easier trash further on in the dungeon, you're going to want to do that. To be fair, some of these dungeons you can literally just go all the way through in a timely manner, killing all trash using no invisibility potions and still get gold. We've done exactly this in Gate of the Setting Sun. We just ran through, we done a normal what we would class heroic run where we did skip some trash and all of that anyway, and then we got to the end and we killed the boss within the gold timer, but we actually just needed like 2 extra trash mobs. But in Gate of the Setting Sun you can't get back up, so we were stuck down the bottom and had to reset. So literally you can just take 5 people and have a leisurely stroll through it, and as long as you're not making mistakes, you're using AoE stuns and all of that jazz to minimize the amount of damage on the tank, because some of this stuff does hit hard, honestly, you'll be fine. Even my memory played tricks on me. I thought gold challenge modes were far harder than they were, because I remember them being really, really challenging back in the day. But I think that was just because we knew nothing about them. Whereas in Classic, I think most people are going to find these pretty comfortable. Now, I'm not going to lie, you do need to be able to put out good numbers in these as a DPS. Eventually, people will be able to carry someone through these and sell them gold challenge mode boosts, because exactly that happened back in the day, and I know it's going to happen again. But early on, with lack of sockets and all that, you're going to have to pull your weight. You need 5 people, on Discord preferably, that can communicate, and you'll get through these fine. But I would say they are a challenge. They live up to their name. They're called challenge modes, and they are quite challenging. It's not like you're just going to walk in and one-shot all 9 of these without prior experience, but they're not so hard that you should be worried. Like, everybody will be able to get their transmog set. It might just take some people a little bit longer than others. The same way with raiding. To put it in perspective, the group I'm in here, where we're doing this for preparation for Classic, it was taking us about an hour to do a gold. And that's with a group of people from the guild. Like, we're all from the same guild. You know, we're all 8 of 8 heroic on Kata and whatever else. You know, we've been raiding together for years. And it still took, you know, a good say 30, 40 minutes to plan out our route, how we're going to do it. We weren't watching videos. We didn't care what other people done back in the day. We just literally went in more or less blind, and we wanted to plan our own route. Exactly what was going to kill, exactly when we was going to invis potion and all that. And yeah, I'd say like 45 minutes of prep, 15 minutes of execution. And I think that's probably about right for all of them, for the vast majority of people. So yeah, that's challenge modes in a nutshell. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Consider joining the channel as a member as well if you click that join button down there if you want to show some extra support. And I'll see you on the next one.